as an IT organization is to support all of the departments, all of the groups in the city that are carrying out the mission of the city, right? Those departments are the ones who are directly serving the citizens. And in turn, I'm really there to make sure that they have what they need from a technology perspective in order to deliver. So that means that what I have to do as the CIO is to make sure that I am the most effective and efficient in the spend of IT dollars on behalf of the city, that I am refreshing the technology in a way that continues to ensure it's there and available and secure for all the departments, and that I'm ensuring that the technology that I'm delivering sets a solid foundation for all of those city departments to do their work. So as kind of an old school coach, if you will, to me, a happy day for me is when nobody notices the technology because it's so much a part of what they do and there's no problems that they're able to do the work. So that's kind of part one. Part two is I think we're in this phenomenal period of time for technology. We have this wave of technology that's all converging together. And if we don't set a solid foundation and if we're not ready for what comes next, we will not be able to take advantage of it. And what I mean by this is that the next great wave of technology is in the data. And that wave of technology that's coming through data. And when I say that, I mean things like artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, augmented intelligence, virtual reality, machine learning. All of these technical capabilities are based upon information, having the availability of information to carry out these remarkable sorts of things. And that wave of data that's coming our way that can be used for these really cool things is enabled by wireless technology. So when we talk about the shift from 3G to 4G to 5G, 5G, when it lives up to its promise, when it's finally fully here, will be able to create a network mesh, right? It's the think about the idea that the network is all around you. No matter where you move, you have this wireless network through which you can rapidly move lots of data. And that data is being fed by sensors and devices that are out there. So when we talk about the Internet of Things, we're talking about the idea that we have devices, sensors, things that are everywhere and omnipresent, and they're all feeding data at the speed of light through these wireless networks back into your data center or becoming available to you as a city to be able to use to better understand the wants, needs, and desires of the residents of the city and to better deliver technical capability to them, right? So again, they're kind of apart from each other, but one is focus on the basics and get really good at delivering technology, but preparing us for this great wave of technology that's coming through data.
Ryan, I'm not sure if we're headed toward Minority Report or iRobot, but it sounds like they're all coming our way. We're with Bill Zielinski, old school coach. This is Shawn Williams, Ryan Trimble with Deconstructing Dallas. We'll be right back to talk to him a little bit more right after this.
Welcome back, Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams, joined today by Dallas CIO Bill Zielinski. And Bill, before the break, we were talking about some of your vision for laying the groundwork for the technology that's coming. Right now, though, we're in, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic, global pandemic, and technology has played a critical role in keeping our city moving forward. You know, I know Shawn and I have both sat and watched city council meetings where everybody's on Microsoft Teams or a lot of services now being provided online. But there's still a lot of residents in this city that struggle with the digital divide. Can you tell us your thoughts on the digital divide and what specifically the challenge is here in Dallas?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I will say that for my 30 years in government and most of those years being in technology, this pandemic has really been fascinating and an incredible experience on so many levels. It came on in many ways like many other natural disasters do, right? Where you get hit by this storm and you have to have this immediate response to the storm, right? And for us as a city, what that meant was how do you, the question became, how do you continue to deliver critical and essential services to the residents of the city at the same time that you're trying to send everybody home and you're trying to figure out how to do all these things safely? So, the first phase of it is really just that initial reaction. And we went about buying equipment, and you mentioned the city council meetings, being able to shift those council operations to being totally online. And then what we found is that as things began to settle in and we realized that this wasn't like a storm in the sense that it moves on after a few days and you begin your recovery process, this began to persist. And so now, we really are fully in the midst of kind of phase two, where the things that you did in immediate response to react to the pandemic are not necessarily the things that will persist for longer term. So we've been trying to figure out how is it that you start to adjust your operations for this prolonged period of this pandemic? And then finally, phase three is going to really be, what does normal look like on the other side of it, right? And so I think every city, state, local, every level of government has been struggling with those three phases. But I will tell you what has really been marked in this pandemic is this piece on the digital divide, right? If you had gone back 6, 7, 8 months ago, the sense of what the digital divide does and what it means wasn't as great. There was a lot of conversation about the digital divide, but you heard statistics like 96% of U.S. households have some sort of mobile device, or they have connection to the internet through a mobile device, right? So even if they don't have Wi-Fi in their homes, as long as they have a phone that's capable of reaching the network, they can use that phone to avail themselves of the internet. Well, what we're seeing here with the pandemic is that device, while it might be good for communication and simple things like surfing the web, it really is not sufficient to carry on regular life. So whether it's students who have to be in class and have to go through complex materials like science classes, you're not going to be able to do that on the phone. Whether it's other businesses who are trying to conduct some level of business, you're not going to be able to do that on the phone. So what I will say is that this pandemic really has sharpened the focus on the digital divide, and it's provided a clear demonstration that it goes beyond just network connectivity. It goes into, do you have the equipment that you need? Or do you know how to utilize the equipment to best effect, right? It goes far beyond just that network connection. But what I would really say relative to this digital divide is, what you're also seeing is that from a commercial investment perspective, in a city like Dallas, you have in the core, kind of in those central areas, you have a lot of capability that's laid, right? The fiber has been laid by those large telecommunications company. But as you start to move out from that center core and you start to move out more broadly into the city, that's where you really see the gaps. And what we've been working through is, what are the things that we can be doing in the city to leverage our physical infrastructure to start to expand that reach from a network perspective? So again, getting the network further out from those core communications areas where that commercial investment has been, and into that area where there's not necessarily a profit to be made by those commercial entities, but it does need to get out there to the citizens. How do we use the libraries of points of distribution for equipment, things like laptop or other Wi-Fi? So again, the answer here is, the pandemic has really sharpened the focus for a city like Dallas, that as you start to move out from that center point, it becomes even more acute and more necessary to provide services to the residents of the city, so that they don't fall further behind, or to ensure that they are able to avail themselves of city services.
Bill, cybersecurity is always a hot topic, especially for government entities. We've seen some attacks in election offices. We've recently seen an attack in the healthcare industry. So what can you and your team do to make sure that city data and citizens are secure as it relates to cybersecurity? Yeah,
so this goes back to my comment about losing sleep, right? Cybersecurity. Having been in government for a long time and been in government tech for a long time, I will tell you that when I first started in government tech, 25 plus years ago, there wasn't any conversations about cybersecurity. You look at the last, 10 years. Now, anytime something happens, right? There was a brownout in New York City. One of the first things that the mayor said is, we can confirm it was not a cyber attack, right? So this is now constantly on the minds of everybody. It's a constant battle and it's a team sport, right? The adversary is always a step ahead of us as a whole. And so you have to continuously monitor, you have to continuously evolve, and you can never stop and you can never rest. There's not a solution. It's a multitude of solutions that you bring together because you need to look at every layer of your infrastructure and always be looking. You have to assume that they're getting in. Another piece about technology is what is a source of our strength? Rapidly emerging technology when it comes to cyber is also a source of vulnerability. So as new technology comes into the marketplace, while it's just emerging, it also means that it has vulnerabilities that have not yet been discovered or exploited. So as a city, we have to establish good relationships at the federal, state, and local level, because this is a team sport and we need every member of the team. We have to maintain close contact with law enforcement so that as things are happening, not just in our environment, but happening across the world and across the United States, that we're getting a good feed of information. We have to maintain open lines of communication, because if something isn't happening here, it's happening elsewhere, then we should be making that assumption that it could soon be at our doorstep. So again, can't do it alone. It's got to be a team sport. You always have to assume that the enemy's ahead of you. You always have to continue to monitor. You can never rest, and you always have to continue to refresh the technologies that you're bringing to the table, in order to really combat the threat that's out there.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, Bill. Tell us about any upcoming updates, or maybe look inside your crystal ball. What are some of the upcoming updates or that we can look forward to that will help modernize City Hall even further?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about kind of pandemic, and you'd mentioned the idea of the city council moving online. I would say in my crystal ball, as we really take a look at where we stand relative to the pandemic and we find ourselves to the other side, I think what you're going to see is a lot of this shift, this left turn that we took in order to continue business during the pandemic, and we brought in this technology. What I would say is that you will continue to see us in the city look for ways to incorporate technology into how we do our business. So just as an example, right, we made this left turn. We brought in technologies to have a collaboration platform that we could use to ensure that city residents can still participate virtually in the various town hall meetings or the city council meetings. And we've gotten to the point where we've gotten a lot more polished than when we were at the beginning. Recently, in some conversation with council members, we were talking about kind of returning to council chambers and returning back to more normalized, or what we thought of as normalized, operations. And it was interesting because many of the council members, they all asked, but we're not totally getting rid of the technology, are we? Aren't we going to keep that technology? Can we have a hybrid model where we may be partially in person or sometimes in person, but we continue to do these things virtually, and we continue to allow the residents of the city to participate in our council meetings, in our sessions virtually as well. So I think what you should continue to look for in terms of that modernization is on that engagement side, that will continue to have a virtual presence. Will extend out into the libraries and other community centers, where we will be allowing residents to not have to come all the way into the city to participate. They'll be able to do it from these areas, utilizing this technology that we put in place in reaction to the pandemic.
Well, Bill, we want to thank you for this time today. Thank you for your passion. Welcome to Dallas. For any of our listeners on Deconstructing Dallas who want to find you or learn more, are you on social media? Where would you send folks?
Yeah, so I haven't yet set up a Twitter account, but am planning on doing so. But I can be found on LinkedIn. under William Zielinski. So you can certainly find me there, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I always have those conversations.
Well, we appreciate the